On Labour Lens this week, the federal government has announced that it is seeking a holistic review of hazard allowances for health workers as the Minister of Labour and Employment claims resources are depleted. Also on the program this week, aircraft pilots and engineers issued two-week ultimatum to the federal government over mass sack in the aviation sector. And later on the show, the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria elect Innocent Bola Audu as new national president. 6 urgent steps by state governments to implement new national minimum wage as negotiated and signed by organized labor, government and the private sector. The Secretary General of the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria is my guest on the program. Hello and welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. Let's take a moment. Aviation workers in Nigeria are not happy with the current situation of things in the sector. They have warned the public of possible air crashes as safety of flights in the country can no longer be guaranteed. According to the president of the National Association of Aircraft Pilots and Engineers, airline operators are hiding under the guise of COVID-19 to unilaterally cut pays, avoid negotiations for improved conditions of service and haphazard salary payments. He also accused operators of sharp employment practice through engagement of foreigners who are not competent at the expense of qualified Nigerians.
We demand that Bristol and Airpeace should immediately recall all SAC pilots and aircraft engineers until all labor issues are resolved or be granted by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority because of attendant safety concerns created by their actions. If this call is not heeded within 2 weeks, our union will be left with no other option but to withdraw the services of pilot and aircraft maintenance engineers across all the airlines. We will no longer condone a situation where airlines operators go to government for relief packages and in turn punish Nigerians in whose name government gave the relief.
During a press briefing in Lagos, the union issued a 2-week ultimatum to the federal government to commence immediate release of intervention funds to the sector to ensure that jobs of Nigerians are secured. The union added that there is an urgent need for federal government to call airline operators to order and recall sacked workers.
We know the impact is purely negative on every other airline. Why not call or let us sit down on the table, let us discuss. In the favor of our union, we talk in your own favor. At the end of the day, we shift ground. Dialogue is the last resolve of every conflict. And that even up to today, we say, call us to negotiate, and we will negotiate. So we know generally that there are negative impacts as a result of the COVID-19 in every airline operators.
Nobody can deprive them of their rights. Like the Bristol, they are unionized workers. Despite being unionized workers, the management still remain fit to take law into their hand because they believe they have the power of hire and fire and they can just lay anybody off at will. And it's a big affront to the union. As a reliable organization, we must resist it.
The federal government has assured resident doctors of its readiness to commence payment of June coronavirus hazard allowance from the 10th of August 2020. This is one of the high points at the resumed negotiation between both parties in Abuja. Also resolved is the trade disputes between the National Association of Resident Doctors and the authorities of the University of Jos Teaching Hospital. All interdicted doctors have been recalled while the association apologized to the chief medical director for accusing him of embezzling 85 million naira meant for its members. The two factions of NAD in the university have also been united and an interim leadership to pilot the affairs of the association till the end of the year elected. Speaking at the end of the meeting in Abuja, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, and the President of NAD, Ali Shukumba, agreed some level of progress have been made. Other issues resolved include the group life insurance and the 4 billion naira earmarked for the implementation of the Residency Acts.
Government has run round to make sure that we process the payment for June. Because that's the agreement we have. And I insisted there is an agreement. I don't do CBAs or collective bargaining agreement and renege on it. So it's been a tug of war. But finally, the Minister of Finance assured me that the Office of the Accountant General are processing the June.
Despite the fact that these COVID allowance have been paid for 2 months, some of our very, very important components and colleagues have not been paid. For instance, those working in the university have not been paid. And the fact that ASU is on strike does not mean that doctors will withdraw their services. They are working day and night to provide for, not just for the ASU members and the university community, but even the neighboring communities. So they deserve, and they run the risk of getting the COVID, and therefore they need to be paid.
The University of Abuja Teaching Hospital is the first of isolation centers in the Federal Capital Territory. The leadership of Medical and Health Workers Union is on a routine visit to this isolation center to see how well its members are doing, even as Nigeria continues to record a spike in the number of COVID-19 infections. As at the last count, more than 1,000 health workers in Nigeria have been infected with COVID-19, while a number of them have died. Agitations for welfare packages, including payment of hazard allowances and continued provision of personal protective equipment, have not ceased among the health workers. They decry government's lackadaisical response to the risks they take on a daily basis. These labor leaders are here to feel the pulse of their colleagues and ensure they are happy on the job.
Like we have told them that if they fail to do the correction and then pay before they pay the third batch, an hour's disharmony will cost this country much more than what they will use in paying the correct value.
He and his team meet with the Chief Medical Director of the hospital after an assessment tour of the center. The union president describes as misleading reports that its members are asking for the same pay with medical doctors.
Coins adjustments has been misinterpreted and misunderstood at very many quarters, especially our brothers, our good brothers. In the old days, we were all like one.
Facility has been so recognized that it is one of, if not the only, very important center where we are managing COVID-19 in Nigeria.
The health workers appreciate the visit and pledge to continue doing their best.
Something and somebody comes around and says, your senior comes around and says, well done, you're happy and you're encouraged to do more.
The leadership of the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, has directed tanker drivers to withdraw services in Lagos State from the 10th of August. This followed failure of authorities in the state to address three major issues that caused pains for the hapless petroleum tanker drivers for several months. According to a statement jointly signed by the National President of NUPENG, Williams Akwera, and the General Secretary, Olawole Afolabi, members of the union are deeply pained, frustrated and agonized by challenges faced by petroleum tanker drivers in Lagos, and were left with no option but to withdraw their services until the state government and other relevant stakeholders address them. Some of the challenges are extortion and harassment of petroleum tanker drivers by security agents and thugs, menace of containerized trucks at Apapa, Kirikiri, and beachland areas of Lagos, as well as collusion by government officials to hinder loading at depots and tank farms. NUPENG says it is sad to note that members have made several appeals to Lagos State government and the Presidential Task Force for decongestion of Apapa ports without response.
Members of the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria have elected Innocent Bola Audu as its president to run the affairs of the union for the next 4 years. In his acceptance speech at the 4th Quadrennial National Delegates Conference of the Association in Abuja, Bola Audu promised to ensure protection of jobs of members and provision of welfare that will lift their standard of living.
Comrades, I am fully conscious of the high standards of our founding fathers and immediate predecessors and have limited the association to. And as I speak to you now, it remains the last union standing in the public service.
During the Senior Workers Conference, organized labor called on state governments yet to implement the consequential adjustment in salaries arising from the implementation of the new national minimum wage to do so rather than finding a scapegoat with COVID-19 pandemic.
It will interest you to know that a new national minimum wage of 30,000 naira per month was a product of intensive and robust negotiation by the Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage. The assignment lasted for over 1 year between November 2017 and April 2019. After intensive negotiations by the committee made up of government, labor, and the private sector, a compromise of 30,000 naira was arrived at. I wish to call on all the states that are yet to conclude the process to return back to the negotiating table with a view to doing the needful. COVID-19 should not be used as an excuse to derail the legitimate right of workers. The issue of minimum wage is a law, what is binding on all employers of labor. The affected states are therefore advised to return the salary chart in their state to what was agreed with labor in the interest of industrial peace and harmony.
During the conference, other labor leaders spoke about the state of the nation and how COVID-19 is affecting the world of work. Others are also concerned about insecurity, especially banditry and kidnapping in the Northwest.
Decent wages for these contract workers and bypassing all other workplace responsibility that an employer hold all workers. We need more capacity building to equip us to organize and negotiate and be more visible, not only outside, but within our different unions in a complex environment.
You cannot wish away our fundamental right without coming to the table to discuss with us. And that is what I now have actually recommended. That even in the midst of the COVID-19, you cannot decide on workers' core issue. We must continue to respect fundamental principles and rights at work. And those fundamental principles is that you cannot reduce my wage without my input.
The Trade Union Congress of Nigeria Women Commission presented an award to the outgoing president and the Secretary General of the association.
The Women Commission is going to have a Say No to Rape campaign and all other forms of violence against the women. Please, this campaign is going to be on 20th of August across the 36 states of the Federation, including the FCT. We have sent letters to you from the National Secretariat of TUC. We've been placing calls. Please, I'm appealing to all of you. Like I said, we lead, so it looks like it's the association that is taking the lead. So please, I beg you in the name of God, support us.
Representative of Head of Civil Service of the Federation spoke about workers' contributions during COVID-19.
This is indeed commendable as it demonstrates your commitment in ensuring not only the upliftment of your members, but the growth and development of Nigerian civil service. A weak, compromise, or unprofessional civil service will definitely lead to a lackluster process of policy formulation and implementation, and ultimately poor delivery of service to the citizenry.
The association wants implementation of policies that will comply with public service rules and other legal instruments.
One of the foremost expectations is that one, we will want the new ESCO to complete the new national secretariat because it has been long in coming. Secondly, we also expect them to look into the unity among the units and branches. They should try and solidify the harmony that has been existing amongst us. Then thirdly, we also expect them to build on better relations with labor institutions, both local and international.
We are expecting the new executive to follow the set standards of the union by mobilizing all the members, by building on the legacies laid down by their predecessors. So the outgoing executive had done a great deal for the progress of the association. So we are not expecting anything less from the new executive.
Let's expand the conversation on the program with issues brought forward at the 4th Quadrennial National Delegates Conference of the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria in Abuja, where members also elected a new team to move the union to the next level, as workers look forward to the implementation of the consequential adjustment in salaries. Joining me on the program for in-depth discussion on these issues is the Secretary General of the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria, Basiru Lawal. He was one of the labor leaders involved in the negotiation for the new national minimum wage, which was signed by President Muhammadu Buhari in April. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be on your show. Thank you.
A lot has happened since April 2019 when President Muhammadu Buhari signed the new national minimum wage into law. It's a known fact that you were part of the struggle during the fight towards having a new national minimum wage. Would you say that the state government have complied totally?
Thank you very much. The implementation, as you are aware, went on very smoothly at the federal level. But the same cannot be said of the states. While some states negotiated in good faith and implemented the product of the negotiation, others have been dragging their feet. We have concluded arrangement to descend on those states that are involved, including those that negotiated, signed agreement, and refused to implement the product of the agreement.
If there was an agreement at the federal level, why is it necessary for state governments to constitute their own committee to arrive at a figure that is workable for the state government? With your experience, why is it essential to have such?
Yes, you know, since I think 1993-95 or so, we've had this policy of deregulated collective bargaining, meaning that whatever that is agreed at the federal level it will just be used as a guide. It's not something that is binding on the states because of this true federalism that people are talking about. Granted that we have that policy in place, you have signed something at the federal level based on the available resources, based on the circumstances surrounding the economy of the country. And now, most of the state government, while this thing was going on, the feelers from them was that they were just waiting for what is happening at the federal, and immediately agreement was signed. They will kickstart negotiation on the strength that, you know, there is a baseline you can't fall below. The minimum wage is 30,000 naira. What is left is just this issue of consequential adjustment. Because ab initio you had 18,000 as the minimum wage. Now you have moved to 30,000, meaning that you have had about 66.66% increase. You understand? So if you leave the salary table the way it is, it means level 1 will be any more than level 2, any more than level 3, any more than level 4. That is pure distortion. It's going to be very tragic. That necessitates the need for us to have negotiation towards moving all those other grade levels. Well, the states want to say that they don't have the same level of resources with the federal, but we know fully well that with sincerity of purpose, if they are very sincere about the whole thing, you can sign an agreement based on what is operating in your state economy-wise and get tangible results. And a lot of states have done it, and they are implementing, and there is no problem.
With the coronavirus pandemic challenge, many state governments are hiding under it not to perform. But can you tell us, how are your members faring, owing to the fact that if you look at the exchange rate now, naira to dollar, the gap is getting wider, which might even negate the gains from the 30,000 naira minimum wage?
You've said it all. With the current exchange rate, it has made mincemeat of the entire 30,000 naira minimum wage, including the consequential adjustment. And you knew fully well that when we were doing the negotiation, we were also talking about a kind of general salary review in the public service. And they agreed with us that at the end of the day, this thing is going to be done. But alas, they've changed tune. They are saying a different thing now. And with this new exchange rate of 460, 470 naira against the dollar, we see it as a kind of criminal conspiracy against the Nigerian citizens. No meaningful activity can go on under this kind of an exchange, because most of those things we do here, most of those things we use here, they are all imported. You can't heap that blame on the workers, because you have to heap it on the doorsteps of the elites that are ruling us. Granted, this is where we find ourselves. We are saying devaluation is not the answer. You go into devaluation when you are exporting, you have products that you are exporting. How many things are we exporting? Some people will come and tell you crude oil. That one is dollar determined. Whether you devalue or not, the crude oil price is determined in dollar, so it's given. But we believe very strongly that there are certain things that can be done within the national economy. It needs to rejig the entire system.
Very quickly, at the fourth quadrennial meeting and delegate conference held in Abuja, irregular appointment in the civil service was being highlighted as some of the challenges your members are faced with. Can you bring us up to speed on this issue?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, when you talk of appointment in the civil service, there are rules. The extant rules and regulations are very much there. The public service rules is there. The guidelines on appointment, promotion, and discipline as published by the Federal Civil Service Commission is there. They are very clear. But unfortunately, you now have a scenario whereby you bring somebody, a brother, a cousin, or your relations who has been at home maybe for 5 years, after graduation, you now bring the person here and put him on level 15. This is an aberration. And this thing keeps on happening, particularly at most of the parastatals of government. At most of the parastatals, they just do it anyhow. And we are saying that most of these chief executives of these parastatals, they have turned these agencies to a kind of field on where they can behave anyhow. And we are saying, no, all these rules, we are not the ones that make the rules, it's the government that makes it. We have to observe these rules. We don't have to observe them in the breach. And these are the things we are highlighting. And we are highlighting these things so that Nigerians can hear us, so that by the time we start moving into some of these agencies and telling them to do it the way it should be done because they have refused to do it under the atmosphere of dialogue and negotiation. So it requires some level of trade union actions to get results, and that much we are going to do. We have a case in National Lottery Commission now. The person was brought in from the state service on level 9. You want to dump the woman on level 15. And now you are even making frantic effort to move the woman to level 17. For God's sake, the classmates of this woman are still on level 10, level 12. What kind of a system is that? And you want productivity. You can't get it. You can't get it. You can't sow cassava and you want to reap cocoyam. It is not possible. It is not possible. That's why we are highlighting it, telling Nigerians what is happening, so that by the time we move to the field and start closing shops in some of these areas, we will not be seen as maybe we are not patriotic.
There are also reports that there are some permanent secretaries that we have right now that were brought outside the civil service. According to law, are there any laws backing such move?
Yeah, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria frowns at that. It frowns at it because the Constitution gives the civil service the power to make its own rules. And the rules are very much clear in the public service rules. You understand, as per appointment and as per duration. That is the number of years you can be before you exit the service. So some of these people are brought in illegally, and as we speak, there is still one in the Federal Ministry of Finance who is above 60 years and is still sitting down there. So these are some of these injustices that are happening in the system.
And how does this affect productivity of the average worker in the system?
It's affecting productivity negatively, because the person is supposed to be answering to some other people. Some of these people are supposed to have exited the system. Some of these people even have no business in the system, because all through their years they've been in the private sector. They contributed in making some of this segment of the private sector moribund. Now, some people somewhere, because they have the powers, they just smuggle it. I will use this word smuggle them in. They are polluting the system. And once you are polluting an area, nobody can work effectively. It's just like you come into an office now and you disinfect the whole thing. People have to leave first for the odor to come down. That is exactly what is happening. They are polluting the system.
Finally, what are the lessons for the public civil service in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic that the world is faced with?
The effect of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Are there lessons learned?
Okay, a very big lesson, a very big lesson. It is now telling us that it's not going to be business as usual for any serious country to move forward. You have to plan for the future of the country. It's not a question of, okay, we are in government, let us do it the way we want to do it. Those who are coming, they will have to save their money to implement their programs. No, it requires critical planning, and you have to bring people who can do it on board. And aside from that, this culture of savings that we've not really imbibed, we must have to do it, so that you save for the rainy day. See what is happening in some of these civilized climes. They are coming with certain packages, stimulus packages, to stimulate the economy. But you can only come up with stimulus packages if you have enough in your reserves. In fact, it is long-term planning. You have to plan for the next 20, 25 years, so that in cases of emergency, you are not caught panting.
Thank you very much for joining me on the program. It was an interesting conversation, as usual.
It is my pleasure, madam.
In summary, organized labor demands that state government yet to implement the consequential adjustment in salaries arising from the implementation of the new minimum wage concludes the process rather than finding a escape route with the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the much we can take on this week's edition of Labor Lens. Join us next week as we continue to discuss labor matters in the face of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. I am Sharon Ijason. Always remember that labor creates wealth.